It was 7 a.m. when I woke to a strange rumble outside. Stepping onto my porch, I couldn't believe my eyes. A deep trench encircled my land, bulldozers and trucks cutting through my property, and standing in the middle of it all was the HOA president, smiling like she owned the place. They thought they could scare me into giving up, but they had no idea I'd been watching, every move captured by hidden cameras. That footage would change everything. Before the rumble of engines and the sight of a trench, my mornings were calm, shaped by the rhythm of the land itself. My earliest lessons about responsibility and self-reliance happened behind a weathered barn when I was 12. My father handed me a heavy wrench, its metal cold against my palm, and said, "If you want this land to run, you need to know how to make it run." He wasn't just teaching me about a generator, he was teaching me about life. About patience, care, and the quiet pride of doing something with your own hands. Every bolt tightened, every filter replaced, every squeak in the wood became a small victory. It was a bond, between father and son, and between us and the earth beneath our feet. We lived on 12 acres outside Tulsa, not sprawling estates, just honest land. The cottonwoods swayed above the creek, fences leaned and sagged with age, and the workshop smelled of sawdust and oil. When my father passed, all of it came to me, the house, the land, the trees, the little workshop he built with his own hands. For 20 years, I maintained it in quiet devotion. Tornadoes would take parts of the porch, and I would rebuild them piece by piece. I dug my well deeper when the water started tasting metallic. I installed solar panels so I could rely on the sun rather than the grid. Neighbors were few, sometimes a wandering cow, sometimes the coyotes howling near the creek. Life moved by the pulse of seasons, not the rush of city clocks. This land was more than dirt and wood. It was history, responsibility, and a connection that tied me to every sunrise and every rustling leaf. It was a place where I knew every sound, every shadow, every inch of soil. Little did I know, that sense of control, of peace, was about to be tested in ways I had never imagined. The world I'd built, grounded in years of care, was about to be confronted by polished shoes, glossy plans, and people who believed boundaries were suggestions rather than rules. For years, I thought my land was untouchable. Every fence post, every tree, every inch of soil had a story. But one morning, the quiet started to crack. It began with a letter slipped into my mailbox. No return address, just initials, SAA. The paper promised fair compensation and spoke of community growth, as if my 12 acres were merely a checkbox on a developer's spreadsheet. I tossed it into the fire pit without a second thought. 2 weeks later, another envelope arrived, this one with a number circled in fluorescent yellow, $600,000. A fortune for some, but not for a lifetime of memory, sweat, and blood planted in that soil. Ignoring it seemed like the right move. But ignoring the HOA, as I soon learned, was like standing too close to a rattlesnake. The first real warning came not with letters, but with movement. A small drone appeared over the western tree line. Black, silent, hovering lower than any hobby drone should. Its lens twisted as if studying my every step. Over the next week, more drones came, each slower, deliberate, almost mocking in their observation. I began noting license plates of suspicious cars, seeing silhouettes lurking just past the property line, and hearing the soft click of paper under windshield wipers that vanished before I could investigate. Then the survey crew appeared. 2 men, clipboards in hand, wearing reflective vests. One older, confident, one younger, hesitant. They crossed my property line under the guise of administrative permission. I called out to them. The older man waved, dismissing my questions. But the younger one whispered, almost inaudible, "You should keep an eye on this place, sir." That night, reviewing my hidden cameras, I noticed one had cut out for exactly 2 minutes. The exact window when the white sedan had pulled away from my driveway earlier. Coincidence? Possibly. But after decades of knowing my land, I knew better than to trust coincidence. The threats didn't escalate in loud crashes. They crept in quietly, lights shining from new houses into my yard, subtle intrusions meant to unsettle. One Sunday morning, a simple printed warning appeared under my windshield wiper: "You should reconsider the offer." No envelope, no signature. Just a message designed to remind me that the HOA's presence wasn't optional, it was encroaching. It was then I realized this wasn't just about money or development. It was about control. And for the first time, I understood that defending my property wouldn't just require patience. It would require vigilance, planning, and a determination as steady as the Oklahoma sun rising over the cottonwoods. A week later, the tension reached a new peak. I was fixing a loose latch on the barn door when I heard tires crunching on the gravel drive. Banjo stiffened, ears forward, tail low. The sound wasn't casual, it was deliberate. Someone wanted to be noticed. A spotless white SUV slid to a stop just outside my gate. The door opened, and out stepped Karen Martell. She wore a tailored pantsuit, designer shoes, and a bright neon safety vest over her blouse. Every click of her heels on the gravel sounded like a countdown to trouble. Clipboard in hand, sunglasses reflecting the morning sun, she carried herself like a CEO inspecting a construction site she already owned. "Mr. Reed," she asked, voice polished and rehearsed. "That's me," I said cautiously, not offering my hand. My instincts told me to stay grounded, to observe rather than react. Karen smiled broadly, perfectly practiced. "I'm Karen Martell, president of the Sunny Hollow HOA. I wanted to personally discuss the property line concerns." I pointed behind me, at the open fields and cottonwoods swaying in the gentle breeze. "This is my property. I've maintained it for decades." Her smile didn't falter. She stepped closer and laid a business card on one of my fence posts, as if marking her territory without touching it. "The offer still stands," she said lightly, "and we hope you'll reconsider for the good of the community." Behind her, the surveyors were already at work. Two familiar faces from before, plus a new, stocky man in boots dragging a measuring wheel across my grass. They were crossing into my land, planting stakes, taking photos. The younger surveyor looked at me, his eyes wide with guilt, whispering under his breath, "This isn't right." The older man, Mark, waved him off. "Lines move. You'll learn that." I felt my blood tighten. I stepped forward. "My property lines haven't moved in 40 years. Every post, every marker is documented." Karen tilted her head, sweetly condescending. "We have the updated maps. You'll see." She gestured to the freshly planted stakes now cutting through my pasture. Routine assessments, nothing more. But her eyes flicked over the terrain like a chess player, plotting each move, rehearsing her control. When she wrapped a piece of bright orange tape around one of my fence posts, I knew this wasn't casual. This was a demonstration, the first strike in a slow encroachment. I watched, silent and steady, as they measured and photographed, the survey wheel clicking rhythmically, marking out what they thought they could take. Banjo growled low behind me, a warning I didn't need to interpret. This land wasn't just dirt, it was home, history, and heritage. And they were testing how far they could push. Karen finally stepped back, hands on her hips, and smiled. "Don't worry, Mr. Reed. Everything will make sense soon." I didn't respond. I only watched the stakes, the wheel, the silent determination on her face. The confrontation was brief, but it left no doubt, this was not a misunderstanding. The HOA was testing the limits, and I had to prepare for the long game. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight hadn't fully stretched across the fields when I heard it, the deep, mechanical growl of engines. Banjo lifted his head instantly, a low growl rumbling in his chest. I didn't need to see the machines yet, I knew something was wrong. I threw on boots, grabbed the first shirt I could find, and stepped onto the porch. Dust hung in the air, thick and copper-colored, swirling around the outlines of heavy machinery. A bulldozer, 2 backhoes, a dump truck, all lined up along the western edge of my land. And standing in the middle, clipboard in hand, was Karen Martell, the HOA president. Designer sunglasses glinting, her posture confident, as if she were conducting a groundbreaking ceremony for land she already thought she owned. "Morning, Mr. Reed," she called over the rumble. I clenched my jaw. "What are you doing?" "Oh, Just some routine work, she said, voice saccharine sweet, gesturing at the trench already being carved. Drainage, soil reinforcement, nothing serious. Nothing serious? The trench ran 20 yards long and 4 feet deep in places, cutting a raw scar across my pasture. I could see the intention in every shift of the bulldozer blade. They were isolating my property, surrounding me, testing boundaries. I stormed down from the porch, banjo at my side, growling and baring teeth. "Move your machines off my land," I barked. Karen didn't flinch. "Evan, you're becoming difficult," she said lightly. "No," I said, voice calm but hard. "I'm about to become a whole lot more difficult." The backhoe operator ignored me entirely, pivoting his machine to widen the trench. The dump truck backed toward the narrow path of driveway left untouched, signaling clearly what they intended, a full encirclement. I ran inside, grabbed my phone, and called the sheriff. The dispatcher's voice was polite, but I could feel her hesitance through the line. "Is there immediate danger?" she asked. I stepped back onto the porch, looking at the trench. If a few tons of heavy machinery cutting off my access, water, and road isn't danger, I don't know what is. Deputy Wilkins arrived 35 minutes later. Young, polite, unsure. He walked the trench with me, taking notes carefully. Karen followed, holding laminated maps that gleamed in the morning sun. "These are the updated boundaries," she said with confidence that was infuriating. I pointed to the old cast-iron property markers, weathered and real. "Those stakes are wrong. My property line hasn't moved." Wilkins hesitated. "I can't determine boundary disputes on site. That has to go through zoning. For now, no one can cross your home lot." Technically. That word tasted like poison in my mouth. That night, I sat on the porch, banjo asleep at my boots, the trench forming a dark line around my land. The engines had quieted, but I knew this wasn't over. This was only the beginning. And I had cameras, every movement recorded, every intention caught. The HOA didn't know I was ready for them, and soon, they would find out that a man who loves his land doesn't surrender it quietly. I didn't panic. I never did. Instead, I relied on something most people overlook: preparation. For years, I had quietly wired my property with hidden cameras, tucked into fence posts, the barn eaves, even the birdhouse. Every angle of the land I cared about, every access point, was being watched. As the bulldozers hummed and the dump truck rumbled along the edges, my cameras were silently recording, capturing every detail. Karen's precise movements, the surveyor's planting stakes inside my property, even the subtle hesitation of the young man who clearly knew we were crossing a line. By the next day, the trench had grown wider, a full encirclement of my home. The footage I reviewed that evening made my blood run cold and, at the same time, burn with purpose. Every line they crossed, every step they took on my land without permission, was documented. Every whispered word, every careful maneuver, it was all there. I realized then that the law might take its time, paperwork might slow things down, but cameras didn't lie. Cameras didn't hesitate. Cameras didn't let someone rewrite history. I began cataloging every clip, timestamping it, cross-referencing it with property records and historical markers. The younger surveyor's guild became my ally. He was caught on camera standing beside stakes clearly planted illegally. I could see him looking around, phone in hand, snapping photos, trying to preserve some integrity while the others carried out the siege. That single act, the documentation, would later become crucial. Every night, I'd sit on the porch, reviewing the footage, noting details that would otherwise be invisible: engine patterns, footprints, the exact times that workers crossed my line. I wasn't just collecting evidence. I was building a case, brick by brick, frame by frame. And then it hit me, this wasn't just a property dispute anymore. This was a battle for control, and I had the advantage of foresight and proof. The HOA thought they were pressuring me, isolating me, scaring me into submission. What they didn't know was that every move was being watched, recorded, and stored. And when the right moment came, their own actions would be their undoing. The next morning, I woke to a silence heavier than any I'd ever felt on the land. No engines. No surveyors. Just the faint rustle of leaves and the distant crowing of a rooster. For a second, I wondered if the HOA had finally backed off. Then, the diesel growl hit me. Banjo barked sharply, hackles raised. I knew instantly, they were back. I stepped onto the porch and saw it, a trench nearly 6 feet deep now, snaking around my house like a moat. The bulldozer's tracks crisscrossed freshly turned soil. And there, at the center of it all, clipboard in hand, stood Karen Martell, perfectly composed, as if she were on stage. "Morning, Mr. Reed," she called, voice bright, confident. "Just continuing our work." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I retrieved the small shotgun I kept behind the porch wall, loaded but never intended for use unless absolutely necessary. Banjo growled low, tail stiff. I knew the law might not intervene fast enough, but my evidence would. Every camera, every timestamp, every illegal step they had taken was already catalogued. I walked slowly toward the trench, shotgun cradled, Banjo at my side. Karen gestured at the bulldozer operator to continue. He hesitated when he saw me, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. That doubt became a ripple. The younger surveyor, guilty as ever, stepped forward. "Mark, we shouldn't be doing this," he whispered. Mark waved him off. "Do your job." I raised my voice, calm, firm. "You're trespassing. Every inch of this trench is illegal. Every stake, every wheel mark is documented. Step back now, or the evidence will speak louder than words." Karen froze for a moment. She could see it in my eyes, the determination that wasn't bluff. The backhoe operator paused mid-dig, and the rumble of engines faltered. That hesitation was all it took. I called the sheriff again, knowing my cameras had captured everything they could deny. When Deputy Wilkins arrived, his eyes widened as I handed him my tablet, showing footage from every angle. Every illegal stake, every overreach, every action was undeniable. Karen's confident smile faltered. For the first time, she couldn't hide the tension. Minutes later, what began as a siege became a legal nightmare for her. Officials arrived, reviewed the evidence, and her HOA's supposed plans crumbled under the weight of documented trespassing. The trench remained a reminder for days, a scar on the land, but it was also proof preparation, vigilance, and respect for your property could turn the tide. Karen and her team faced charges. The younger surveyor's small act of conscience helped solidify the case. My cameras had caught everything. I walked back to the porch as the sun dipped low, Banjo at my feet. The fields were quiet again, cottonwoods swaying gently in the evening breeze. My land, my heritage, my memories, they remained untouched. I sat down, shotgun now safely stored, and took a breath. Sometimes, standing up doesn't mean fighting with force. Sometimes, it means being patient, observant, and letting the truth capture itself. That trench, those stakes, those cameras, they told a story stronger than any bulldozer ever could. Sitting on my porch that evening, Banjo curled at my feet, I realized something important. This land, these 12 acres, were more than soil and trees. They were memory, responsibility, and the lessons passed down from my father, the weight of a wrench in a boy's hand, the patience it takes to keep the earth running. The HOA thought they could intimidate me, surround me, and rewrite the boundaries of my life. They didn't know that vigilance, preparation, and respect for the truth are stronger than threats, louder than engines, and more enduring than any line drawn on paper. Sometimes, standing your ground isn't about confrontation. It's about seeing clearly, documenting what matters, and letting justice find its way. My cameras didn't just capture trespassers, they captured the truth, and that truth brought accountability. The trench they dug remains in memory, but it no longer holds fear. It holds a lesson. Owning something isn't just about possession, it's about defending it with wisdom, patience, and integrity. And as the sun set over the cottonwoods, golden light spilling across the fields, I knew one thing with certainty: if you respect your land, your heritage, and your principles, no amount of force or deception can take them from you. Truth has a way of prevailing, even when bulldozers, fake permits, and HOA presidents think they can rewrite reality.